Compared to NA, the games in Europe were so much easier. Hello friends, ZQuixotix, Zach, whatever's easier for you to pronounce, I'm guessing it's the latter, here to share my anecdotal experience on playing in the EU servers versus the NA servers. I see this discussion come up a lot, which server is better, are there playstyle differences, which one's more toxic? So last month, I was on the east coast of the USA, had about 100 ping to the EU server, so I thought, let's give it a go, let's see if I can tell the difference. Oh my god, they're so much better than us. NA players, what have we been doing? I know 78 games is not really enough to generalize an entire server, but in that time, I did feel like I noticed several things that made games better in Europe than in NA, and that's what I would like to share in this video so that NA players let's do this, we can catch up, we can be a better server. First of all, skill difference. We do see European pro teams tend to do better than NA pro teams, but does that carry on down to the MMR bracket? In the 6 to 6.5K bracket, I know we're not going pro, but this is top 1% still. So in theory, there should be a good understanding of the meta, how to play, all of that. So are the European players at the 6K bracket better than the NA players? Yes, but no. Kind of for a different reason than you might expect. So no, in the sense that I didn't feel like I saw some amazing play at 6K in Europe that I'm like, wow, I've never seen this in 6K NA. It's so different, right? The good plays were about the same that I would see in NA, and the bad plays were no better or no worse than the mistakes I'd seen in NA. So in terms of the highs and lows, the skill potential, it felt about the same for the 6K bracket. I didn't feel out of place going over. In fact, I thought the games were easier. It is the skill consistency that felt very different. So in EU, maybe 7-ish games out of 10 felt yeah, we're playing at a 6K level. It feels pretty good. NA felt 2 out of 10 games maybe is that level. Now, when you do have a good NA team, it felt very comparable to a good EU game. And that's what I mean when there's not a skill difference, but there is a skill difference that if I go into a game in EU, I feel relatively confident that this is going to be a 6K game. It starts at the draft. European players give themselves much better games right from the start. They recognize what's in the game and they try to pick to fit that. For example, if our picks are lacking stuns and initiation, the last pick is going to grab some kind of stun initiating hero, like a Puck, Ember Spirit, Storm Spirit type hero. If I pick a weak laner with a stun like Nyx, who's going to scale up over time, but my laning is weak, you're very likely to see a ranged hero like Death Prophet or Viper, who just need my stun and do a lot of lane dominating on their own, so I'm just the body, right? The lane works very well and it fits the game as a whole with the rest of our draft. In NA, maybe we have some Nature's Prophet, Pugna support first phase pick. Not the best support duo, but as long as the cores pick to match it, it'll work. But we're getting Viper off lane and Drow carry. You're okay, I really hope for some kind of stun from that mid lane, and it is a TA or a Zeus or a Clink's coming up, and it's why? What is happening here? This is how I imagine most NA core players look after demanding last pick. They just crack a little gap in their fingers, and they're God forbid I look at any of the heroes picked this game. I'm only trying to look at the heroes I want to pick. Where is Shadow Fiend? There he is, Shadow Fiend, right? And then lock in Shadow Fiend. Then he goes and grabs the glasses and he's shit, the picks on my team are so bad. No one picked a stun. Now, I myself am guilty of picking stuff just because I feel like playing it, or picking stuff that I know there's a better pick, but I'm not that comfortable with it, so I'm going to pick something I'm good with. I get that. I never rage out at drafts myself. But the frequency of those types of games is very different. And most European games that I played, it made sense. There might be weird picks, which is another thing. European teams didn't flame at weird picks. They saw, I was playing Leshrac 4 when the patch first hit, and it was weird. It hadn't caught on or anything, but they would see it and they go, that's weird. But it offers a stun, it has damage, I'll pick a melee initiator to lane with it, and my stun will set up his stun. It worked, even though I had a weird pick. NA players just pressed play Dota, and they're immediately looking for reasons to give up and stop playing. If there's a pick they don't like, if anything happens, they're so ready to be done in the drafting stage. I don't even get it. Getting into the actual game, I want to highlight one thing in particular, and that is active play. Now, I do think it's cool when a region has its own play style. NA would be a more farming play style. EU has a more active play style. You could argue one is better or not depending on the meta, but it's cool when you have different play styles. But even within a like farming style, there is still a certain level of activity that is strictly good to do, even as you try to prioritize heavy farming playstyles. I, as a support player, have to ping that it's like 5 minutes and 30 seconds. Like, hey, the power rune is coming up. It would be really good of me to go to that. And I have done a pull. Equilibrium's in a good spot. You will sit under tower and you will get this wave, and then you'll go to like the jungle. You'll be okay for 30 seconds while I leave, and then I come back, right? I have to like explain all this. I have to set everything up perfectly for them so that I can go, and I hope to God they understand and play properly. But so frequently they just walk up and die and then rage that you've left their lane. In Europe, the core players ping me. They ping me to get out at like 6:15. They're like, the wisdom rune is coming up. Don't forget about it. Make sure you leave this lane and go get that wisdom rune. If you don't get that wisdom rune, you screw your game over, which screws my game over. Get out of my lane. I will be here. I will be fine. Go help the mid get a power rune. Go bottle refill him so that he can gank my lane, which I have kept around here because I am used to playing 1v2. I know what to do. Get out of here. Do not just sit here ruining our game. It's like a different game. It is so much easier. That's what I meant when I said that. I could play the game that I felt is good to do. Like, here are the things I'm supposed to do as support. But in NA, there's so often this catch-22, and I know core players out there are already saying, like, oh, my supports are useless. They always stay in my lane, or, like, they never rotate when I want them to. I get it. I know there are bad support players out there as well. But to understand from, like, a sports player side, like, it is such a catch-22 in NA games where you're supposed to rotate. It is what is good to do because some washed up player has been making support videos and he's telling you, like, yeah, go wisdom runes, go power runes, stuff like that. You're supposed to. But so often, the moment you leave the lane, the core is going to die, and they're going to rage at you for leaving the lane. And at the same time, the mid's going to rage at you, like, why didn't you leave your lane and help me? You're like, I wanted to, and this guy's yelling at me, and this guy's yelling at me. The off lane's like, why didn't anyone rotate? You're like, I want to go. But God forbid that off laner support leaves, because he's like, where's that support going? Only the other support can come to our lane. And the carry's saying the same thing. It's like, people can only come to my lane. No one's allowed to leave my lane. Unless once you come here, then you have to get out of my lane. You're like, what do I do? I don't know what to do. It is so difficult to play an active play style in NA. None of the cores feel like they know how to play when being left alone. And I think part of the reason for this is this self-fulfilling prophecy in NA that has led to many core players and support players playing in this like weird state where everyone is playing suboptimally, but it's also like what they have learned that they have to do. And I'm going to get into that in a bit because I want to finish covering some topics to like tie back into this. So next I want to talk about communication. I think the communication in EU is a lot better. So for example, it will be proactive communication that helps figure out what we need to do as a team this game. So like the mid laner will say, I'm about to hit 6 in one creep wave. Can any of the supports come? Can anyone rotate? It'll be a kill on the mid lane. Power runes are coming up. Can we come for the power runes? Hey, this guy just TP'd bottom. Can we make a play top? I do not want to fight. I am 500 off BKB. Let me finish BKB and then have a smoke. Then we're going to go. It is the type of communication that explains the state the player is in and what they want to do next. So everyone can like hear it and kind of figure out like, okay, I was going to do this, but actually this will line up with that timing, right? It helps us to figure out what is happening in the game. NA players are so quiet. They will not say anything whatsoever until a mistake happens. And some play that was really obvious to them that needed to happen, it doesn't happen. And that is the moment the NA player discovers how to communicate. That is when they realize they have an enter key and a mic button. And that is when they suddenly deliver their essay, their master thesis dissertation about how bad you have to be to not know you needed to do this, and you have now ruined my life for not coming to get this rune. Suddenly, you can't get the guy to stop talking, and like 30 minutes will pass by, and the game will have ups and downs. You could have won, you had throws, right? It'll all go up. The guy cannot let go. That 6-minute rune, if only you had shown up, it would have been so easy. Stay in your 6K bracket, idiot. I've got 100 MMR higher than you. Like, okay, buddy, that's huge, right? Like, oh, it's so worthless, guys. Post-mistake communication is almost always useless in a pub game. That is like some pro-level 5-man thing where it's like you go back in hindsight and you're like, this is what happened, like we shouldn't have done this, and you grow together as a team. In a pub game, you aren't going to see these players again very often. Now, NA you actually will because their player base is pretty small. But in general, you're playing with different people every game. You don't need to this like, oh, let's go back and break down what happened, right? Help yourself. Just say it. The power rune is coming up. Help me get it. Do not wait for 2 power runes to be missed and then start raging at me like, how bad can you be to not know you need to help me? Sir, I am a support player. I do not know every mid hero. I do not know every mid matchup. I got my own shit to do. Now I understand if I was a good Dota 2 player, I would have a rough idea of the mid matchups, and maybe I do, and maybe I knew I was supposed to help you with power runes, but I got caught up in stuff. Dota is such a hard game. There's so much stuff going on all the time that if you could take 1 second to press your mic key and say, power runes. That's all you gotta say. Get rune. Gank mid. Ping the time, 5:30, right? That's all the European players do. They don't write me an essay. They just say, help. Help rune. Get rune. Power rune. Something like that, right? That's all I need to know. And I'll say, I'll be there. Or, bottom's really tough. I don't think I can go, right? It's useful. It is before the event happens, and we will all do our best to make the best play, and we can recognize, yes, we should stop that guy from getting the haste rune, but I'm sorry, I can't be there. Or yes, I will be there, and I will help you, right? We do the thing, and the thing happens, and it's good for all of us. That is useful communication. Do not tell me after it has happened. Just say it. Just say it ahead of time. Now, sometimes you communicate, and the mistake still happens, and that is when the flame comes out. Now, I don't condone flaming. This is a very wholesome, positive channel. You guys know I try to be very forgiving in the games. Let's believe in the best in each other, right? And that's what I recommend you guys do as well. But I'm a practical man, and I know the flaming is going to happen. So, when you flame, NA players, I ask you, please, flame with intention. NA flame tends to very quickly devolve into personal attacks, like 95% of the time, and it's totally worthless. Yelling at someone, attacking them for like as a person and like the country they're from, the language they speak, it's frankly just very offensive, incorrect behavior. But like in terms of Dota, it is 100% useless. European flame tends to cut deep. Not always, they have their own personal attacks as well. But more frequently, right, we're generalizing here, more frequently, the European player knows how to hurt a Dota 2 player. If you're racist to someone when you flame them, they just go, that's a racist. I don't have to respect anything a racist says, and that's true. They just get to brush it off. You don't have to respect anything someone racist says. But when you take racism out and you flame the guy, you're like, why did you build a Midas and you have a Battle Fury queued up when they have Chen Beastmaster and the mid lane is going well? It is so obvious that they are going to push very early with an aggressive lineup, and if we can't hold that, we lose. You need to build fighting items so that we can get through that, and we will easily win after that. So why on earth would you build a Midas? Are you stupid? There you are, some Midas building core, and you're mad, of course. You're being yelled at, you're being flamed, and you're like, blah, blah, blah. You know, you fight back a little bit. Now, later on, you lose because you built the Midas versus a Chen Beastmaster, and, you know, you're taking a shower later, you've cooled off, and you're reflecting on it, and you're like, Midas probably wasn't the play. Shit, that guy was right. God, shit, he was right. That is the most frustrating thing as a Dota 2 player. When someone is flaming you and they're right, you can't even fight back. You know it. You know it in your heart. You might flame back just out of like human reaction. Like you're the main character of your own story, right? So like, of course, he's yelling at me. I can't be wrong. But when you have the ability to self-reflect, right, and the human behavior of like natural self-defense fades and you get some time, shit, he was right, no. So flame with intention. Explain what the player did wrong. And now you're flaming, right? Which I don't want you guys to do, but you're getting the flame out if you can't control yourself. And you're educating them. So when you get them in your game again, because NA has a very small player base, you're going to get them in your game again. You have educated them a little bit. And when they get flamed 5 games in a row for their itemization, slowly they will improve. I actually believe this might legitimately be part of the reason why European players have improved over time, because when they flame, they hit you with the truth, and they are correct. So NA players, give it a shot, because frankly, you're going to give it a go, and sometimes people have flamed and they've tried to explain why, and to me, I'm like, that's so obviously incorrect. And I personally don't usually engage because I don't think it's worth it. You know, I don't know, maybe I should. Maybe there's like some room there to try to engage in reasonable debate. But for those of you who are, you know, ready to snap back and flame, hit him back with a Dota knowledge. Explain him like, your idea is so far off from the truth. Here is what needs to happen, right? You guys are flaming, but there's a Dota discussion beneath all of that, and we're improving as players, even in a very angry, emotionally immature way, but we are improving. I'm going to briefly mention this because I know people will ask, but it's a very touchy topic that I don't think this video is really the place to like do a deep dive in. But in terms of language barrier, for those curious, I felt like it was a very similar amount of games that I did not understand any of my teammates, and I personally don't care. I actually feel like I win more of those games. But I didn't think it was that different between EU and NA, like English-speaking games versus non-English-speaking games. Like that ratio, whatever that was, felt about the same to me. I felt at home just playing my own solo game in Europe sometimes. I think there are many ways to like infer what is happening in Dota 2, and frankly, a lot of games where I have English-speaking teams, they don't talk or they only flame and they won't stop talking English, so I mute them. So it's really no different to me. Like some games are just different. I only want teams to communicate in my language. Like Dota's a very hard game. I deserve to have that communication. You gotta go find a party game, guys. That is the reality of a pub game. If you solo queue, you will get people of different languages in a increasingly global world. That is just what is going to happen. If you want people to always speak your language, you gotta go make a 5-man pre-made team. Mentality is the last thing I want to touch on. When a European player presses play Dota, my God, they mean to play Dota. What a concept. I cannot believe the frequency of which I have to ask my teammates to keep playing the game prior to the 10-minute mark. Like, it's insane how quickly NA players are willing to give up. As soon as there's some level of struggle and misfortune and something hasn't gone their way, they are so ready to give up. And I don't know what the exact reason is here. Like, I don't know if there was a more individualistic culture in America that has led us to be more selfish about our own game and like things like that, or if like we don't have affordable health care, so people aren't going to therapy to work out their problems, so they implode at the first trouble in a video game. I don't know what it is, but NA players, please play the game. You have pressed play Dota, play Dota. It's just upsetting, like the amount of games that get decided by which team implodes first. It doesn't feel like good Dota, and it's not like very fun, even if, okay, actually, I won't lie, it's kind of funny to make the enemy team implode, right? But in the long term, it's not very enjoyable to be like, yeah, like we won this game because, you know, he gave up. He broke his items at 6 minutes. Or like, yeah, I missed one rotation, so my mid laner gave up, right? Yeah, I lost. That's on me for making a single mistake, right? It's not very fun. At least in Europe, like, even if you end up winning or losing at a similar level, like, you're playing the game. You get to constantly improve throughout the whole game so long as people are playing. And yeah, some guy screwed up your game like 10 minutes ago, but now you get to practice recovery. And they practice recovery because they keep playing the game. NA players don't know how to recover from behind because as soon as they're behind, they just give up. They only know how to play good games. So let's get back to that point I mentioned earlier now that we've touched on all this. NA, I feel like we're in this self-vicious cycle where everyone has this mentality, and kind of myself included, right? Like, the game is going to be screwed up by my teammates. It's going to be toxic. No one's going to do the right thing. And so if I want to win, I have to do everything. I have to be able to solo win this game. It's not a team game, 5v5, no, 1v9. I hate that mentality that has come in, but so much toxicity and like so many people like not knowing the right thing to do or feeling they can't do the right thing because like toxicity is going to come out. Everyone feels like they have entered this mindset, like, I have to 1v9. And that's why we see so many of those picks. We see so many, like, 1v9 style picks. And guess what? When everyone picks like that, it doesn't work. Except when the enemy team is also picking that way, then it kind of works. And that's why it's this self-fulfilling prophecy. Every carry player, every core player, mid, off lane, everyone thinks, I got to carry. I don't trust my carry. I don't trust my mid laner. I have to scale up and be able to win. And every support's like, everyone's going to be farming, so I have to be a farming support. I have to scale into late game. No one believes in team play anymore because everyone has been griefed and they're so tired of toxicity that everyone just wants to do it their own way. And it's not good Dota, it's bad. I don't know how to break that cycle, but that's like what I feel after reflecting on all of this. So there's a couple things I'm gonna try to change about my own behavior, and maybe other NA players can pitch in their own ideas or maybe try some of the stuff I'm about to mention that I hope would help make NA games more enjoyable. Now I know some people will immediately say like, oh, it'll never change, like don't even bother, but like, if you already have that mentality, like, things definitely won't change. I do think it's important to remain optimistic, hopeful, all that, and, like, do our best. And slowly, some of us will, like, get into good games, and we can commend and dislike whatever in the behavior score. I don't know. Like, we have to try, or else, like, nothing changes. So, first of all, communication. And I am very guilty of this. When I stream, I just talk to you guys, and I don't communicate to my team, and I see someone die, and I'm like, it was so obvious that, like, he was going to die. The whole enemy team was there. But I didn't tell him that. I didn't tell him the information I had. So I, in my games, am going to be working a lot on my communication, telling my team preemptively before opportunities happen, like, hey, 6 minutes, I have to go. Hey, 7 minutes, I'm going to leave, right? I'm going to work on that kind of thing. Hey, this guy's about to finish BKB. Let's all be ready to smoke in this area and go here. I'm going to place wards in this area, right? I am going to work on that type of useful communication for myself, and I challenge you guys to do that as well. Second is to flame with intention, which I'm not going to do. I'm not going to start flaming. But for those of you that do flame, right, reflect a little bit on it. How much useful communication you did versus, the flaming. How much flaming can you tone back? That's always good to reduce toxicity in our games. But when you reach that tipping point and you ultimately flame, did you just attack the person in a completely useless Dota way? Or did you explain, like, in an angry way, here's what went wrong. Here's why you needed to do this. Like, your item build is really bad. You need this item, right? I still believe that more friendly communication is the better way to get that point across. But if you NA players, us, I'm involved in this, if you're going to flame, please flame accurately, not just attacking the people. I don't know how to change such massive issues of like play styles for an entire region, but I do think these two things are stuff that we as individual players can easily incorporate, and is like, it's strictly good. It is good to communicate properly, and it will help you in your, your actual life outside of Dota. Like, if you're a better communicator and you can control your flaming and stuff like that, and you don't just like attack people, like, it is actually good for you to do in and out of the game, and it's stuff we can individually do. And I personally do believe, like, with enough people doing that, it could slowly start to shift the mentality of our region, and hopefully we could play better, which is maybe like really hopeful thinking. I'm sure I got comments telling me I'm crazy and all that, but I think we can start there, right? As individual people, and we can actually enjoy the game we're playing a little bit more. Okay, rambling out. I'm done. I'm gonna go grief my Dota games now.